Right. So we're really kind of beyond the point. I mean, when we were looking at these things maybe 5, 10 years ago, we were having to put some type of a wire, embed a wire into the pavement, and then the vehicle would sort of, and this is what they use in factory floors and things for their robots, where it basically follows that wire around. We don't need that now.
Right. We're past that, which is great. The other nice tool will be to have DSRC communication with infrastructure and other vehicles. Dedicated short-range communication is a wavelength that's been basically reserved for vehicle-to-vehicle and vehicle-to-infrastructure communication.
Okay.
It's a certain frequency at which these objects will interact with each other once it's rolled out. Right now, the frequencies are reserved, but it hasn't been implemented in any large-scale capacity. There's a lot of research and there's people implementing it, but that's going to be another key factor in communicating with other vehicles and with things like traffic signals.
Right.
So that'll be just another redundancy layer to ensure safe operation of autonomous vehicles.
So let's say I'm a city, I'm Baltimore, or I'm Boston, or wherever, or Beijing, and I want to be able to implement these. How much of an infrastructure upgrade do I need to do to make that feasible? Or is it just simply an Olli rolls off the back of the truck, it gets powered up, and somebody throws a switch and it goes into business?
Well, unless you have extremely old signal infrastructure,
okay,
you could need to update. But if you have signals that were from the last decade or so,
okay,
maybe a little bit older, it's really just an upgrade to the signal. You attach the DSRC equipment, do the programming. There's companies already out there doing this that specialize in this. So it's not a major lift. It's complicated, and it costs money, but it's not. We're not talking about ripping out traffic signals and rewiring things.
Right. Okay.
And then the vehicle itself will need to have the transponder as well, so the other end to communicate with the signals.
Right.
And that's just a matter of programming that sensor on board, just like all the others.
All right. Well, look, tell me a little bit about yourself. What got you involved in this? What's your educational background? If somebody's watching this and they say, boy, I want to get into autonomous shuttles as a career, this is exciting, what do they need to do to get to where you're at right now?
I don't have a very straightforward answer, but really my whole life I've loved vehicles, just been obsessed with cars and transportation. And then on the other end of that is sustainability. I would consider myself an environmentalist. I'm really interested in transit-oriented development. So that's coming from like the architectural and urban planning side. And then in school, I went to school for sustainability actually, and majored in that degree. And really focused on materials and energy and technology. That was kind of my interest. And so, I found Local Motors, and it kind of all came together, really.
Right, very cool. So you're located where, Maryland?
No, I'm actually in Phoenix, Arizona.
Oh, so you are down in Phoenix. Okay,
yeah.
All right. Yeah, I noticed as we were sort of setting this up, I saw a bicycle, I think, in the corner.
Yep.
Is that your transportation or your recreation or both?
Both. I live in downtown Phoenix, so I use that to get around here. But I also own a old little Volkswagen Golf to get around.
Cool. So let's talk about the business side of this thing. Where do you guys make money in this? I mean, obviously these are prototypes. You want to use set these micro factories up. Are those something you own or you license to people?
It could be both, really. But I mean, yes, we intend to own an infrastructure of microfactories all over the world. We could set them up with partners and license the development. With Olli, we intend to sell those under a subscription model where we offer upgradable hardware, service and maintenance. And the pros to that are we're able to then upgrade your vehicle with newer tech or rearrange seating configurations, help you with exterior branding. We would license our other partners' technology in that scenario, so you're able to have the latest software from, whether it's IBM or Meridian or one of our fleet management providers, just to make sure that you have the most current technology for, best user experience, safest operation. So you're getting like the fullest longevity out of your vehicle and your investment. So
right. What are the liability issues here? Obviously, I mean, I noticed that in looking at the website, there was something about human supervision to Olli, and I wasn't quite clear what that is. Is there somebody rides along with a kill switch, or is this somebody remotely watching these from a monitor and they could, so talk a little bit about that, and what are your liability concerns? We've had, several of the Tesla autopilot, crashes, at least one of them, with deadly results. So what are your concerns here?
So we do have a remote supervision piece to the puzzle. Part of the autonomous software comes with this back-end control center where you can monitor your fleet in real time and you can see the health of the vehicles and location.
Okay.
So that's where the remote supervisor comes into play, and that is a human. It's kind of it's a IT function almost, where you understand the emergency protocols and you're able to assist or deploy a first responder unit in the case of an emergency. But we really mitigate risk by designing it out of the system. So the reason we're tackling low-speed vehicle applications is, one, because it's an underserved market, but also it's a really great way to get into autonomous vehicle development. It's a lot safer than traveling at high speeds.
Right.
So think about the time it takes to go from 15 miles per hour to 0 compared to 70 to 0.
Yeah.
It's clearly a lot more deadly. Being struck by a vehicle going 10 is not going to be fatal. I mean, there's some.
It's a good knock. I got to once ride on a sled that the local state patrol had set up at a car show, and this thing was, was like 6-7 feet, and you ride down this, and I guess it hits about 12 miles an hour. When it hits the bottom of this thing, that's a pretty good jolt, just that 12 miles an hour.
No, that's true. You would experience some pain if you were being struck by a 4,000-pound vehicle, but I mean, it's definitely different than being hit going 50.
Well, certainly.
So we're able to operate a lot safer just because of the speeds we're dealing with. And also, if the vehicle does encounter an emergency, it breaks itself off from its normal operating robotics chain and goes into a safety chain layer, where it basically stops the vehicle, puts it in park, notifies the control center, and then gives the riders instruction on what to do next.
Right.
So we don't have any scenarios where it's careening into a wall or, a crowd of people.
Right. Right. Cool. So where does this go from here now? What are we spoke a little bit briefly about the plans, but you've got what? How many orders at this point?
We have, I don't know, kind of too many to count. There's for our first next year, we're basically spoken for.
Okay.
We plan on doing maybe about 100 next year.
Okay.
So some of those are pre-sold. A lot of them are in negotiation. But we're looking for basically just capacity to be able to build more at this point.
Right.
So that's where our troubles are. The troubles aren't in trying to find customers, which is great.
Right.
So kind of our next step is really to go out and do as many demos as possible for all of our interested partners, and then turn those demos into a pilot program.
All right.
So we intend on implementing a roadshow scenario where we go out, do 1 to 3 day demos for a bunch of different cities and operators all over the world.
Right.
Those will roll out kind of over the next 6 months. And then we want to turn a lot of those into pilot programs where they have a fleet of Ollies operating in their service area for the next 1 to 12 months after that.
Right.
So really get them used to it, make sure we're filling all the requirements, collecting the data, of course. And then we would deploy a commercial application as the third step, where they actually integrate into their system and they have their product that is fit for their needs.
Right.
And we've expanded the service area.
So what are the qualifications to acquire or be an ideal location for a microfactory? I'm thinking here of my own community. We always have annually, we have the College World Series. That attracts about almost 500,000 people in the downtown area. This year we had that overlapping with the U.S. Olympic swim trials. That attracted about another 250,000 people, again, in the downtown area. This weekend, we have the triathlon event, National Triathlon Competition, again here in town. And we have this zoo on sort of the other end of the community that has traffic jams on weekends backed up for blocks, trying to get into the zoos. And they're trying to figure out, how do we control all this traffic and stuff. So I'm thinking there could be, a role for that here, just even locally. So I'm wondering, for other cities, what do you need to see? A major, capital investment or orders or a combination of all of the above?
Well, there's two things. You don't necessarily have to build a microfactory to own and operate a fleet of autonomous vehicles.
Right.
So if you are interested in actually producing locally there and having, a local motor service center, a lab space, and going the full distance, of course that's an option. But you could also operate a fleet of Ollies in your network. And it's really, we would go in and just kind of look at the use cases. We'd have to survey the area, really understand where your problems are stemming from.
Right.
If it's a few times per week you're having too many people in this certain part of town and it's just clogging everything up, we would kind of design ways to mitigate that.
Right.
If it's for special events, that could be a different type of use case.
Right.
You might want to partner with other event holders and stakeholders for those type of things to figure out how best to use the vehicle. What's cool about Olli is there's so many use cases. It's not like it's just a circulator shuttle.
Right. Well, one of the things I found that we haven't talked about is the fact that this could be turned into a delivery vehicle too.
Right. Logistics is another big.
Instead of hauling people, it can haul packages.
Exactly, yeah. And it can pull double duty. It can do people during the day, packages at night.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
who do we talk to about that? If I'm gonna talk to the Chamber of Commerce or.
Yeah, you can shoot me an email. Okay. You would also want to get in contact with my colleague Matt Lesh.
Okay.
He's our Director of Mobility Systems.
Okay.
So he'd be one of the first points of contact, and then we'd go from there.
Right. So what are you learning from the deployments you have right now? You've got some in Berlin. You've got some now in Maryland, outside of D.C. Mm-hmm. What have you learned? What are the hiccups that you've discovered along the way?
Regulation has been kind of one of the larger battles.
Okay.
Just getting the licenses and permits in place and making sure we are operating legally. that's kind of why we're focusing on states and cities that already have regulation in place.
And this is
Because it's
regulations for autonomous
for
operating vehicles or
autonomous,
just
for
shuttles in general?
autonomous specifically.
Autonomous, okay.
Yeah. There's a handful of states that really have mapped out what they're looking for and are a little bit ahead of the others.
For example, who has a model legislation we could borrow?
Florida and Nevada are great.
Okay.
Yeah, they've kind of pioneered this.
Okay.
And the people that work at the state, and even locally at the cities, they know what they're talking about. They've set up working groups. They meet regularly. They really engage the private companies that are developing this technology. And they have a full permitting and inspection process. And I think they're just a lot more motivated right now for whatever reason,
right.
Those two states specifically. But there's others too that are really working on it and that are playing catch up quick.
Right. Well, I know in the case of one of the counties over around Iowa City, I interviewed them, probably 18 months or so ago, and they had actually, that was I think the first county to actually enact legislation to permit the use of autonomous vehicles within the county. Of course, Iowa City is the home of the University of Iowa, and they have a really great transportation technology, center there. So, I mean, they develop technology for, remotely, robotically controlling tractors, plowing fields and planting seed. That's been well-known technology for at least a decade now.
Yeah.
All right, very cool. Well, look, thank you for taking the time and talking to us. I think I have an application that would fit into what it is you guys are doing, and maybe we can talk about that off the record at some time. So
that'd be great. Yeah.
All right, cool.
Good job.
Well,
right.
well, look, Jonathan, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Bill. It was great talking to you.
All right, talk to you later.